Also, thank you again for having us today. We had a webinar in November, trade versus type, and we did not record that one. But this time, it's good that we're recording. I see a great interest. Just to verify, you see my screen?
Absolutely.
Yes. Do you see the whole presentation or just open presentation?
We just see the PowerPoint kind of menu as well. So if you can just click present, it should cover the whole screen.
Yes. Well, yes, but the present is underneath the Zoom
I know
setting.
There's not such.
You know what I can do? I can just make it smaller. Yes. Slideshow. From beginning. Okay, now you should see the whole presentation. Correct?
Not yet. It's still the menu. Oh, now we do. Yeah, perfect. And we can see the next slide as well.
Okay, so I think the trick was to go to more.
Hey, Georgi, if you click display settings, you should be able to swap this view with the actual
yes.
view of the presentation.
So swap, right?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Now do you see?
Yeah, that worked.
Okay. Okay. Good. All right. So what the bleep are we measuring about personality? The case for integrated person profiles, IPPs, right? Quite the title. Let me explain. Now,
the slides are a little bit cut, Georgi. They cut at few.
They are.
Yes. Yeah. Well, maybe is anybody else seeing this or just me?
Yeah.
Maybe no, now it's better.
I think it's because you. Perfect.
Oh, okay,
now it's perfect.
That works now.
Excellent.
Okay. All right. And so, let me take down Zoom menus. Currently, we measure slices of personality. That's my answer. What the bleep now we measure about personality? We know the value of self and other report, and also behavior. I remember when I started as an intern in Hogan years ago, Hogan told us, we are not in the business of explaining. We are in the business of predicting. Good luck explaining someone's personality in full, but the goal in practical settings is to predict what they will do, because that is what matters. And you can leave their self, or the difference between your reputation and your self inside. You can leave that to the people, unless you ask them or you are a good friend of them and they tell you. Now, with the promise of technology and big data, I see that it's time to bring back the person in the measurement of personality. And I call this integrated person profiles. Now, what do I mean here? I want us to return to the originals, Allport and Cattell. I'm citing in this slide. If you see the first quote from Allport, and this is his book about growth in personality, pattern and growth. The scientific evidence for the existence of a trait always comes from demonstrating by some acceptable method the consistency in person's behavior. Do you see how Allport wants to take into account the whole person? And personality or personality tests, or what Cattell would call later Q data, self-reported personality, is supposed to be generalizable and exhaustive of the behaviors that are indicators of that trait. And that is the psychometric methods. We have to write items that cover the whole continuum of behavior. So I could immediately, write a extroversion scale with items like, I like parties, I like social gatherings, I like a lot of meetings. Others describe me as talkative. And I ask you, what are you measuring there? What the belief are you measuring? Are you measuring extroversion, or you're just measuring talkativeness? Unfortunately, and we saw it with the HBO Persona movie, some companies have commercialized the self-report data, and they just knock off measures without thinking of, without knowing what they're doing, and the whole trait concept and the measurement reliability and mostly validity. Because how can you say that you have a valid test for extroversion when you just it's a valid only for talkativeness? It's not the only indicator of extroversion. Assuming you have good traits, a good trait measures and scales, and you assess the person and you give them their report, what do they do with it? I have seen so many people, they just blink at in fascination with their, I don't know, maybe 35 scores from the new PR, and they cannot put back themselves into these scores. That's why you need a person with an expert or a Ph.D. in personality or IO social psychology to explain what is going on, what these scores mean for them. And Cattell in 1965 did not want self-report to be the only source of personality data. He came up with L, Q, and T data. And L data is life record data. And because he, back then he could not know these things, what people do every day, he relied on friends and family to report what the person does, what the person has achieved throughout their life. Nowadays, you kind of, I'm sure you are figuring it out that we can know these things, hopefully legally, with consent from the users. And T data is, Cattell thought of it as objective performance test, objective or performance test of personality. So these are behavioral samples, physical performance checks, psychophysiological data, and other techniques that are not face valid. And that is something we are not doing nowadays. We do mostly L and Q data. So I call integrated person profiles these three things, the wholeness of them. Only when you have all these sources of personality data, you be able to construct an integrated profile of that person. Now, the value of L and Q data, it's probably, I mean, you know it. There is current research in social psychology. I'm citing here Vazir, and they have found out that some traits are more internal and we know more about them, but some are more external and others know better about us because we want to feel self-worthy, and we flow our assessments of desirable traits. So actually with desirable traits, others are more accurate compared to us. So we have good evidence that L data is very valuable. And as far as I know, I mean, Stewart and Lumina Spark there too is also considering L data and how others, what language they use to describe the person who is assessed, which is great. So we have integrated in there too L and Q data. Now T data, let's explain a little bit more. T data is, as I said, experimental situation. It's a test, a strict test. You could think about it as a laboratory experiment. The person reacts to stimulus information, situation, and is not aware that his personality or her personality, their personality is measured. And Cattell thought that you would be able to deduce personality from their overt behavior in such situations. Now, I ask you what these situations remind you of. To me, in workplace assessment, they remind me of the in-basket, of the work sample, and in general, of the assessment center method, where you can put someone through very structured exercises for a whole day, and you would measure their competencies, their behavioral skills in valuable dimensions of performance, but you would also be able to observe their personality. Now, I would call this, however, a case of oil and vinegar. We are talking about behavior already and personality. And in these IPPs, I argue that you can integrate both. However, on a first look, they do not explain a lot of variance in each other, personality or behavior. I did a quick experiment with some DDI data, executive assessment data, and ambition. So I just wanted to figure out how much variance each personality or behavior explain in each other. Not great, not so much. We know that ambition is one of the underrated but very important factors for leaders. It was predicted only with by two. I'm talking about multiple regression here, not just correlations. Only by two executive competencies: global acumen, which is demonstrating an understanding of the global business environment and how the company can profit from it, and how to build their global strategy based on the business environment. And the other is cultivating networks and partnerships, which is how to reach out to people inside, outside of the organization, and work with them to fulfill projects, basically some sort of social astuteness to get work done. So ambition was not predicted by behavior quite strongly. You see R squared at 0.11. And the other way around, entrepreneurship, which is a behavior. We have a competency called entrepreneurship. And you would argue that entrepreneurs are a case for extreme personalities. They have to be ambitious, prudent. Well, the data shows not so prudent. It's negative. Very open to learning, inquisitive. So we know that they have weird personalities. You can look at Elon Musk, for example. Well, the adjusted R square was 0.09. So entrepreneurship predicted only by 3 of the Hogan personality inventory scales. So it seems that they mix and they separate, or they don't mix well. And why is that? Or how can we accommodate them in a common method that can be useful for assessment or prediction of behavior? Now, how to put back the person or personality puzzle. And I'm bringing back Kurt Lewin, and you see the equation down there. And behavior is a function of personality or the person and the environment. Well, we are missing the link is the environment, the situation. Current research in social personality psychology, I should say personality psychology, shows that like personality, the situation might have an independent effect on behavior. And models of situational perception are growing. And that literature is intensifying and becoming mature. And I expect that they already have derived some measures of these situational characteristics. For example, take Rautmann's diamonds model, where they break the situation into how I perceive it. Do I have a duty to do something? Does it expect me to use my cognitive skills? Is it an adverse situation? Is it a romantic situation? Is it positive or negative? Do I need to be sociable in it? So we cannot put back the personality puzzle without the situation and connect the behavior and the self-report. And so I would say that Cattell was right to want us a full encompassing view of personality with behavior, but the methods back then did not allow him to study well the situations. And so what is the unique person? What is this integrated person profile? You already understand that I mean, this is a unique personality and behavioral behavior makeup. You can put also preferences and values there, attitudes, values. They also interact with the situation. You know that you have value hierarchy, and you would select some ways out of each situation. Sometimes strong situations, they require strong answer, strong behavior that's driven by your values. So I see one psychometric method right now quite used in psychological research, latent profile analysis. There are many others derivations of it. Basically, it's unsupervised method, similar to cluster analysis, right? So here, just an example how we can put back what we have so far. We can put back behavior and personality without the situation, just by trying to reproduce these profiles from what we have until we have good data from the situations. So here we have three behaviors: cultivating networks, partnership, driving execution, establishing strategic direction, and the 7 HPI factors. Now I want to emphasize these two latent profiles, 7 and 6, and look at their behavioral competency scores. You have 7 clearly better in cultivating networks and partnership and in establishing the strategic direction. You should not be surprised why. If you had only the behavior scores, you would not know that well why, unless you ask them or you get bio data, some other source of data. But you look in their personality, you see almost, and by the way, the scale is 10 scores. So here we see almost 2 standard scores difference in their sociability. Now you probably understand why the purple profile is lower on cultivating networks partnership. They are just a little bit more introverted. They would not take a chance of every opportunity. Also, the pink profile is more ambitious, so they will certainly jump at every situation. And the pink one is almost 2 STEM scores higher on inquisitive and learning approach. Therefore, the difference in establishing strategic direction. Yes, it's not a great, huge difference. It's half of a standard score, STEM score. But it's a difference. And these differences, when you put someone in an executive role, matter millions and billions of dollars, because it takes, like, what if Peter Thiel never approached Elon Musk to create PayPal? Well, that might be determined just by that difference here in cultivating networks and partnerships. And the other pair I want you to see, the blue, and I see it as orange. I'm a little bit colorblind, but I think it's orange. Very similar behavior, very similar competency scores. However, you see these huge swings here, dips. The blue, so X5, lower adjustment, higher sociability, lower prudence. However, the orange one, higher adjustment, lower sociability, higher prudence. Which one would you put as an operational executive? I think you should put the orange one, because they would stand up to the stress. They might not be very sociable, but their job does not require much sociability, more like execution, and more prudent, higher than the average. The other one could be maybe more strategic role, given their higher inquisitive, higher sociability, but that lower of an adjustment sometimes it's not a great sign when it's combined with lower prudence. If it was higher prudence, higher conscientiousness, and lower adjustment, that's fine. You still have anxiety to perform. But when both are down, that's not the greatest profile. Now, this is integration. This is an example of integrating personality and behavior. Imagine that we have all sources of data about this person. We had their L data, we had more of their T data, we had very good Q data, and we just built these profiles on big data, with big data. And now you might think this is like wishing, wishful thinking. It is not. It's already being done by huge companies. Unfortunately, companies that we cannot ask to disclose how they profile us in the internet. And unfortunately, we have to put some rules in this profiling that is going on in the internet, by our social activity, social marks or behavior. So my conclusion is that we need to move from slices to chunks of personality. We have to explain personality within situations, combining the self-report with behavior, how that traits, how they interact with the situation to produce a unique response in that situation, unique behavioral response. So in the future, we would probably be able to build these integrated person profiles. The goal for these profiles is not to become the next types. They are not MBTI types. They should be as specific as possible. We should make Allport and happy that we will bring back the uniqueness of the person. We should move away from measuring common traits. So the goal is to specify as much as possible. And we have to fill in the missing links, which means better models for operationalizing the situation and interactions between situation and trait variables, and get as much data as possible on people with their consent. I think maybe then we will be talking about the fullness of the personality, to reproduce our whole self, not how we tick marks on a questionnaire saying we strongly agree with the statement. That is not personality, I think. At least the full personality we need to measure. All right, that is what I have for you. You can shoot me an email with more questions, but I'm happy to answer questions now too.
Absolutely. And thank you, Georgi. One of the things I absolutely loved about your presentation, it combines academic research with business experience. And sometimes in the world of publishers and different psychometric tools, we forget there's a whole personality science dimension where thousands of research papers are released, and we build on what Allport has definitely played a part in. And it is a personality science. So we're finding out. So right now it's a big 5, maybe it'd be the big 6 in a couple of years time, maybe big 7, maybe 3, who knows? That's the beauty of science. We're discovering things as we go along. And the combination of, and was Allport's original paper from the 1930s. Is brilliant, and it's on Google Scholar if any of you fancy some bedtime reading. And it's one of the most fascinating papers I ever read, as it combines like references from poetry as well as ideas of factor analysis in one paper. And how often you get that? So does anybody have one or two questions for Georgi at this point?
Yeah, I have one. Yeah.
Go for it.
Georgi, first of all, thank you very much. It's such a coincidence. I was reading this book. This is one of the, it's in French. My wife gifted it just two weeks ago. There are 2 volumes by Kettle.
Oh.
One, this is about psychosomatic and psychodynamic aspect of that time. And this is about his measurement, in adaptation and behavior. So linking personality with behavior. And when I saw your presentation, I say, okay, yeah, at least there are some people who are still talking about the L data, Q data, T data, and putting everything together rather than slicing. And for me, it is a big pain point. Like it pains me personally to see that there is so much slicing happening in the personality that nobody knows what the hell we are talking about when we talk about personality. Different companies, different test developers. I am a test developer, I develop test. So they talk from so different, so varied perspective, and they don't listen to each other to make a synthetic model or something. So when I saw your presentation, I felt very happy. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
And my question is that I would like to know where you see this research into personality and the relationship between personality and performance heading into, which direction it is going to be.
Well, if you look into IO psychology, we've been talking about conscientiousness predicting performance at point 2 to point 3 forever. We know some good we have meta-analytic corrected correlations for other types of job. We have it for sales, for managers. But I would answer that question with improve the criterion. We have we measure slices, but assuming that you have a broad measure of a factor. Take, for example, the Hogans. Their factors, the big factors, are based on 20, 30, 40 items. That's a lot. It's almost like the MMPI scales length.
Yes, it is.
So assuming we have kind of measured well the factor and people are not faking, or so what is our criterion in performance? I think we have to sort out that is a very old debate about the performance, the criterion question in IO psychology. In the future, is it gonna be success is it objective performance? How many how many things I assemble on an assembly line? Is it gonna be potential for leadership, as assessed by my supervisor, my manager? Is it gonna be balance between what I give to the company and maintaining well-being and some sort of sanity during lockdown? I mean, the last one seems to be a very, very important criterion. The last year, nobody is publishing, but I actually see IO psychology. When I said nobody is publishing, I already see that the switch, people are starting to be interested more. What defines successful performance in the current social, political, global business environment? So we'll see. It depends on us. Let's do the research. Let's change the narrative. Nobody else can do it. We have to do it.
Excellent. And talking about change in research and changing the narrative.
Yeah, that is a big criterion problem in performance measurement, and that's part of the game. It's like, hitting a moving target.
So
I have another question.
Well, on that note, James, you will have to hold it, otherwise till we come to the end of the discussion.